Olá, comunidade Fiel. Eu sou Marcos Eberlin e sou professor no curso de Design Inteligente, do curso Fiel de Liderança. E eu estou aqui hoje com o Michael Behe, o maior nome no mundo sobre o design inteligente. E é uma oportunidade única que a gente não poderia perder de conversar sobre design inteligente com quem realmente conhece de design inteligente. Quem lançou o design inteligente no mundo? Abrindo a caixa preta de Darwin, Michael Behe. Então, um privilégio imenso a gente estar aqui com ele. Nós queremos fazer algumas perguntas, esclarecer mais alguns pontos que a gente discutiu no curso de Design Inteligente. E vamos então fazer algumas perguntas. O Michael Behe vai estar respondendo para a gente. E vamos aprender ainda mais sobre essa teoria que está contra-revolucionando a ciência das nossas origens, mostrando que, de fato, fomos feitos prontos por uma mente extremamente inteligente. Então vamos aproveitar essa oportunidade. Michael Behe está aqui. E vamos começar perguntando para o Michael Behe o que é que ele está fazendo aqui no Brasil. Michael Behe, what are you doing now here in Brazil?
I'm here to attend a conference on intelligent design where we're talking about the latest scientific results which support the idea that the universe is the result of deliberate intelligent design.
Yeah, but Michael Behe, most people never heard about this theory of intelligent design. And they might be wondering what this theory is about. Can you tell us something or explain better the idea of intelligent design?
Yes, everybody is able to tell things that were designed. When you go down the street and you see flowers in a neighbor's yard, if they're prettily arranged, you say that, oh, that's a nice arrangement, that was done on purpose. But if you see weeds growing in their lawn, then you say, well, that's probably an accident. Nobody intended to do that. So we can tell that something was purposely arranged when we see different parts put together for a purpose. In the case of flowers, it was to make something pretty, to make your house look nice. Another example, in the United States, there's a monument called Mount Rushmore, where is carved the images of 4 past presidents of the country. And if you see it, even if you never heard of the monument before, and even though it's just rocks, you can immediately tell that it was purposely designed. You don't have to know who designed it or how it was made or when it was made. But you can tell just because of the shapes of the rocks that they match each other for a purpose to portray the images that it was purposely designed. The idea of intelligent design in science is that many parts of nature also appear to have been purposely arranged to do something. And this idea of intelligent design is a very old one. The oldest Greek philosophers of which we know made the same argument. They said that nature is so well arranged that it's clearly the work of a mind. It's clearly purposely designed. In modern times, we've gotten away from that, but as we know more and more about life, we're discovering more and more very sophisticated arrangements in life, especially in the cell and at the molecular foundation of life. There are literally machines that run your cells. There are little trucks that go up and
Amazing.
down. Yeah, highways made out of molecules. Everybody hears about DNA, and DNA contains information. The sequence of letters, chemical letters in DNA, is very analogous to the sequence of letters in a text, in a book that you might read. So intelligent design says the way that we recognize design is when we see different parts arranged for a purpose. We do it in our everyday life all the time. Now we see it unexpectedly in life, and we can conclude from that life was purposely made.
Perfect. But in 1996, you published this book, Darwin's Black Box. And we actually translated this book to, this one, to Portuguese, Caixa Preta de Darwin. And this is a really famous book. And but I'm wondering, I think most of us, when we see the title of your book, wonders, why did you select this title? What is a black box? And what did you find inside this black box that changed your mind about chemical and biochemical evolution?
A black box is a phrase that we use in science to mean some machine or some system or something that does something very wonderful, very impressive, but you don't know how it works. Mm-hmm. You don't know how it works because you can't see inside the black box. And the idea of the title of the book is that to Darwin and the people of his time, the middle of the 19th century, the cell was a black box. The cell, which we now know to be the basis of life, they thought that the cell was just a little piece of jelly. They called it protoplasm. And while it might be mysterious, it was ultimately pretty simple. But in the past 150 years since Darwin's book, science has made tremendous progress in understanding the cellular and molecular foundation of life. And far from being a simple jelly, we see that the cell is really a ultra sophisticated, automated factory that is run by automated machinery. There are machines to import supplies into the cell and export waste, and there are photosensitive machines which take sunlight to make energy for the cell, and a whole array of very impressive machines that are more sophisticated than things that we humans can make. So the book argues that now that we've opened Darwin's black box, we can see that his idea, while it was good for his time, is inadequate to explain what we now know. And I go on further to argue that a better explanation is intelligent design.
Okay, but recently you published another book, this one. And the title is even more provocative. Darwin devolves. And you argue in this book that there's a new science about DNA that challenges evolution. Can you give some details of the arguments that you use in this new book?
Yes, the title is provocative intentionally. I'm trying to get some people's attention. So devolves means the opposite of evolve. That is, you're losing things instead of making new and impressive biological features. And the book points out that it's only been in the past 10 or 20 years that science has gained the ability to test Darwin's theory at the very foundation of life, which is where the action is in biology. It's important to remember that the mutations that ultimately Darwin's theory depends on are changes in molecules, in DNA, and in the protein machinery that it codes for. And yet it wasn't until, again, about 20 years ago that science could sequence the DNA of organisms easily enough to be able to track changes in them over time. But now their technology is developed so that with laboratories that do it continuously, it's very easy to sequence even the whole genome, all of the DNA of an organism. The DNA of humans and dogs and geese and corn and mice and all sorts of bacteria. It's all been sequenced.
Bears.
and bears too, yeah. And the interesting thing is that it has confirmed, experiments have confirmed that Darwin's theory or Darwin's mechanism does work. That is, there are mutations. Most mutations harm an organism, but some mutations help an organism. And that organism can survive and do better than other organisms. But the surprising thing that's been discovered now is that almost all of those helpful, beneficial mutations are ones that break or degrade genes that were already there. So it's improvement by taking something and throwing it out.
Wow.
if you were
very surprising, isn't
it? It's kind of the opposite. From the interesting thing is that from a large level, a change might look like an improvement. Mm-hmm. For example, I talk about a polar bear in the book. Polar bears are supposed to have evolved from brown bears, and while polar bears are strong, big, they can survive in very cold weather, they can swim very well, and all sorts of adaptations. Turns out that most of those adaptations are due to breaking of genes. So at our level, the level of the whole organism, it looks like it's getting better, but it's only doing so by decreasing the amount of genetic information that it has. That's important. That Darwin's mechanism is very important at allowing a type of organism like mammals or bears to diversify and fill different niches in the environment. But it does not explain how the genes got there in the first place in order to be able to break and adapt to new situations. So this is not a rare occurrence. Most of the beneficial mutations that scientists have found are ones that break genes.
Wow. Okay, but in your first book, you were talking about biochemistry, right? And I used to say that chemistry is everything, and everything is chemistry. Uh-huh. And the arguments that you're using is from chemistry, or the biochemistry, or the chemistry of life. Mm-hmm. But if you talk to evolutionists, they would say intelligent design is not science. It's religion. Mm-hmm. The arguments come from the Bible. Maybe they would say that, right? So could you comment on this impression that they are trying to spread all over the world, that intelligent design is not science, it's religion?
Yes. Of course, it's very controversial, but it's only controversial, in my opinion, because of the implications of the scientific results, not because the scientific work upon which an idea of intelligent design is based is not true. Everything that is cited in the book is published in the scientific literature. Instead, the idea of intelligent design is based completely on physical evidence. It's like the example of Mount Rushmore that I discussed previously. The figures on the mountain are made out of rocks. We can see them, and right. We know from our experience that it takes a mind to plan these different things in relationship to each other so that they fulfill the purpose of portraying the images. In the same way, it's completely science to investigate the physical basis of life and look to see what's the best explanation for it. And while Darwin and his contemporaries expected simplicity and messes and jellies at the bottom of life,
Right.
we found machines. And
Machines.
if you go down the road to the nearest shop and you see machines, you immediately know they're designed. And the reason is not religious. Nobody would say you're religious because you say that a car is designed, but because all of the parts of the machine are put together to make it work, and we see the purpose behind it. So let me give you an analogy. Many scientists are suspicious because they say, well, these religious folks are trying to insinuate religion into biology. Well, whenever an idea, a scientific idea, touches on basic questions like where did the universe come from? Where did life come from? What is a mind? Any theory will have profound religious or theological implications. Darwin's theory had very strong religious or other implications. The question isn't whether it has implications, but what is the evidence upon which it is based. A good analogy is that intelligent design is to biology, or intelligent design is to biblical arguments for design as the Big Bang theory is to the opening of Genesis that says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth.
True.
The biblical phrase might be true and interesting, but it's based on religious authority. The Big Bang theory doesn't have anything to do with Genesis, and it's based on observing the physical movements of galaxies and stars. And it turns out that when the Big Bang theory was first proposed, many scientists hated the idea because because they thought it supported religion, that it supported Genesis. Same thing with intelligent design. Many scientists hate it because they think it supports a designer, a god, a religion. But the evidence for intelligent design, like the evidence for the Big Bang, is from nature, from the physical properties of life.
Okay, but if you consider the title of your new book, Darwin De-Evolves, and if you also look at the title of your first book, A Caixa Preta de Darwin, and people may think that you were trying to argue that Darwin was completely wrong. Is that true that he was completely wrong? What did he get right and wrong?
Oh, yes, it's very important to keep in mind that intelligent design does not say that Darwin didn't get anything right. It just says he didn't get everything right.
Right.
And Darwin's theory is still very important and true, but it explains much less of life than he hoped for. For example, we know that mutations in humans can help give resistance to malaria. Malaria, of course, is that deadly disease that kills up to 1 million people a year. And the sickle cell mutation in many people of African descent helps combat malarial infection. It's a fine example of Darwinian evolution because the change that was necessary is just a tiny change in a very complicated molecule called hemoglobin, which helps to carry oxygen from your lungs to your tissues. It's like putting a little bump on a machine, and it's enough, though, to ward off much of the malarial parasite, and people with this mutation survive better, but it's just a change in something that was already there. It's not constructing anything new. Another example of a mutation in humans that helps resist malaria is called Thalassemia. And in thalassemia, a gene for one part of hemoglobin is thrown away. It's broken.
Right.
And for some reason, that helps against malaria. And
exploding the bridge.
Exactly, yeah. And there's another mutation that occurs in a protein that is on the surface of red blood cells. And the malarial parasite is just a single-celled tiny organism. It comes in and it sticks to a particular protein in the cell, and it uses that as a bridge to enter the cell and eat the hemoglobin inside. And some people have broken the gene for that bridge, for the protein that the malaria docks to it. It's thrown away. And so now the malaria can't cross over and get into the red blood cell. That's medically important. It's Darwinian evolution, but it doesn't explain how the gene got there in the first place, let alone the red blood cell or the malarial parasite. So Darwin's theory is very important, but it does not explain where life came from.
Oh, perfect. But I forgot to start actually asking a little bit about yourself, about Michael Behe. Could you tell us where are you from, where you live?
Yeah.
How do you get involved in this debate of intelligent design?
Yeah, I was born in Pennsylvania in the United States, so on the eastern side of the United States. And I was raised in a Catholic family, and I'm still Catholic, and went to parochial schools all my life. And I was actually taught about Darwin's theory in parochial school. And we were taught that, well, God is the creator of nature. He can make life any way he wants, and he makes it by a Darwinian-like process. Who are we to tell him otherwise? And that sounded okay to me. I didn't care. That's just fine. And so I used to think Darwin's theory was true, but not because I had answers for any of the questions I raised later in my books, but because my teachers and professors told me it was true. And I took their word for it. But later on, I read a book that was skeptical of Darwinian theory. It's called Evolution, a Theory in Crisis by a geneticist named Michael Denton. And it really startled me. I said, wait a second, how can you criticize Darwin's theory? And it was written completely from a scientific point of view. And he raised questions that I myself could not answer. And so I went to the science library and said, well, who has explained the very complex biochemical systems that you study in biochemistry all the time? And again, I was startled to find out that no one had published anything explaining in real detail how Darwin's theory could explain them. Right? People would wave their hands and tell stories about how things might evolve, but nobody gave real scientific details. And at that point, I thought I got angry. I got mad because I thought I had been led to believe something not because of the strong evidence, but because that's just the way you're supposed to think these days. And it was that point that I became very interested in evolution and intelligent design.
Okay, I think we are coming to the end of this talk. Has been really nice. But let's talk about the future now. How do you see the future of intelligent design?
Well, it's a bit complicated. You can think of it in several ways. One way is, will the idea of intelligent design be accepted widely by scientists? it's already accepted widely by most non-scientists. Everybody in the world can see the design of nature, except for scientists. And that's a tricky question because it doesn't really depend on science. It depends on sociology, social pressures, what you're supposed to believe, and so on. So it's a little bit hard to predict. But I think I'm very optimistic that eventually everybody will accept intelligent design. And the reason is for the second sense in which you can ask about the future of intelligent design, and that is, what is the science showing? And the more and more we know about the cell and about the molecular basis of life, the more obvious that it becomes that this is a mind-bogglingly sophisticated system, and it just, the design will not be denied. It screams intelligent design. So you cannot forever deny the evidence, but exactly when is much harder to say.
Okay. So, yeah, we came to the end of this talk. Thank you very much, Mike, for coming. First to Brazil for this conference that we had on intelligent design, several talks that you are giving here in Brazil. You have been an inspiration for us to defend intelligent design. Your books are excellent in many ways. I just hope that this relationship will endure forever. And you keep coming to Brazil to give talks and especially to promote this theory, which is fully based on scientific discoveries.
Yes, I fully intend to come back as many times as I'm invited. This is my third time in Brazil, and I just love it more and more as I come here.
Yeah, you are now, let's say, 10% or 20% Brazilian, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Good.
Yeah, I'm going to have to improve my Portuguese.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.